Hello everyone, my name is Jennifer and I will be your instructor for evidence-based practice, the research study that you guys have all heard a ton of information about, I'm sure. So I'm going to go right into the course shell, just kind of give you a few things to try and get done before the class officially starts, and kind of a little bit of information on those assignments and where to find the information that you need within the course shell. So first, as soon as you go into it, of course, the syllabus is right there at the top. Here are just a quick guide of how to create a research study. Here's all the steps, identifying the problem or gap and so on. I won't bore you with all of that, but that is just a really quick guide of what we're gonna need to do and accomplish to complete our research study. Reference materials. This is the first year that we have not had an actual textbook that you all have had to purchase. So what we've done is gone through and created PDF files of the information that you will most likely need to access to be more informed when you're creating your outline and when you're creating your details form. So if you go under the reference materials, I'm going to change this from hidden to visible. Glad I caught that. These reference pages are all from the book that we've used in previous years. What's a variable? What kind of sampling method do I want to use? These are all things that you're going to want to look at to start filling out your outline assignment, which is one of the first assignments due in that first week. So then we have a sensitivity versus specificity video. You probably remember from PTA 102 about all of the special tests that you had to do. What are we trying to rule in versus what are we trying to rule out? And this is from your Score Builders book. This is what the Score Builders feels like students need to be knowledgeable about in order to be successful in answering any evidence-based practice type questions on the board exam. So all of these things on here are topics, and then we have the scanned descriptions of most of those in these pages right here. So that's just a nice quick reference guide. What kind of data are you collecting? Some of the ethics behind it, different types of research studies. A lot of the basics are right in here, and it's a good tool to help you get started. IRB, this is just the forms that we will need to look at and make sure that your research studies are going to be in compliance with all of those standards. Here's the very first assignment, and you see here this says 5 groups. I sent an announcement out just a little while ago that we are going to need to have 3 groups of 4 students and 2 groups of 3 students. So if I go into the outline right now, there's the actual folder, but then right above that are all of the research studies that have been done in the most recent years. So we cannot be repeating research projects that have been done previously, especially in the last couple of years. So definitely take a look at this and make sure that what you are looking to do with your group is not already on this list. So here's that. And so once we know the groups and the group names, I'll be able to take each of your names and plug them into your group name if you have that established, or at least put you in a group. So that way when you submit your assignments, only one person from the group will need to submit it, and it should automatically populate for everyone else in that group. Okay, so outline form. Let me go a little bit more into that, because the more you can have of this completed before day 1, I think you'll feel a lot better and not feel so frazzled or rushed. So your group name, group members, and the date, general description of your study, and if you think you might know the title, go ahead and put it in here. If not, we can try and figure that out later. What's the purpose? Why should we be doing this research study? Why is it important? your research hypothesis, and if you see here that reference part of your course shell, I put the page numbers in there for you to look at. And I think when Dr. Berg put them in, she put research hypothesis, null hypothesis. So it should be easy to find the references that you need to fill out these questions. So what kind of design are you going to use, and what kind of data are you going to collect to determine if that hypothesis or null hypothesis is going to be proven? So also in the Score Builders book, you're going to figure out what type of data are you collecting. Is it nominal, ordinal, interval, or ratio data? And there's some examples in there. And I will post some more examples if you are having any difficulty with that as well. And we can talk about it in class. How are you going to collect the data? Are you using a GONI, tape measure, all of these things? And then project start and end dates will be the same for everybody. October 20th is when you will start collecting the data. Let me say this really big right now. You cannot start collecting data until you have received all of the consent forms. And I will go over the consent forms as well. Super, super important because it's a legal thing. So before you can start on October 20th with the baseline measurements or readings, however you're going to do it, all those consent forms have to be signed. Okay, I've said that. We'll have 4 weeks to collect data. I recommend just doing data at the beginning, at the end. You can do what you wish. My group, when I did our research study, we did a beginning, a midpoint, and an end. And it was really hard to prove or disprove our hypothesis because the midpoint varied so much, we might not have been able to get to every participant on the same day. So taking a first data collection and endpoint data collection is what I recommend, but we can always talk about it in class depending on how you want to design your research study. And how long will it take the participants? This is basically how much time of their day are you going to need to take to collect this information from them. Variables, here's the page numbers to determine what are your independent variables and what are your dependent variables. This is a good link right here if you need to get outcome measures, like if you're doing a Berg or a Tinetti or a functional reach test, anything like that, you should be able to find with that link. Just basically answering as many of these questions as we can. Inclusion criteria and exclusion criteria. For IRB, I know the 2 things is they have to be at least 18 years of age and they cannot be pregnant. Those are the big ones. But we will still look at the IRB forms to make sure that there's nothing else within your study design that may be a red flag. Okay, what defines your control group and what defines your experimental group? So that's basically onto how are you going to assign your groups? How are you going to determine that? So looking at all these pages, are you going to randomly assign groups in one or the other, or are you going to do a block assignment? Those types of things. And how will you assign them? Sampling method. Is it a convenient sampling where you're just going to pick the first 5 people that walk through a door and say, hey, you're in my research study? Or are you going to be more cognizant of, I really want to try and find people in this age group to do my research study? What is your goal sample size? We've seen anywhere from just a couple people to almost 60 people, if I remember right. We had 28 people in our research study. So the more people you have, the more statistically significant your numbers would most likely be. However, with this study, there's not going to be a whole lot of statistical validity because of the time constraint. So don't put too much pressure on yourself about that. It's more about learning the process. How does evidence-based practice happen? And when I'm trying to look up a good intervention for my patient for low back pain, and I'm looking at a research study saying, hey, I want to try that, then you're going to be more knowledgeable by the end of this course as far as looking at that research article or journal that you're reading about low back pain interventions, and how valid is it? Or is it just somebody's opinion? So we'll get into some of that if it's more anecdotal or if it's like a systematic meta-analysis review. I'm sorry, I'm getting way too in depth here. So what are the potential risks? Any physical, psychological, or social economic risks? Just keep going down this form, and here's the big legal thing here. Before anybody can participate, we have to make sure we get all of the consent forms, okay? In the context, what does current research say about your topic? So you'll need to find at least 2 articles that support your hypothesis, and then 2 articles that do not support your hypothesis. This is called like a research review. 2 specific examples. How is this knowledge going to be helpful to clinicians, and how can it be applied in daily clinical practice? What patient populations is this going to most likely benefit, and why? 2 ways that your research study gives meaning to your practice as a physical therapist assistant. So this could be something like, well, here's the history of this demographic population that I'm studying, and we want to try and improve these numbers or decrease the risk factors, however you are creating your data. Pardon me. And the profession. So here's the validity. There's a lot of page numbers that you can look at. I believe it's this first 27, 28, 29, and 34 pages. There's like a chart that gives specific examples of the different types of threats to validity, and it's like a chart. So that was really helpful. And then I think the second half of the research pages talks more about the definitions of each of these. So then, lastly, the results and conclusion. We added a couple things here from previous years because I wish I would have thought about these things before I actually started the research study. So how are you going to determine if the data you collected supports your hypothesis? Meaning, are you going to look at correlation coefficients and say, well, if I have at least 1.0 of statistical correlation, then I think I proved my hypothesis. Or, what is my outcome measure going to be? What am I going to compare to determine was there improvement or was there not improvement, and how much improvement was there? Will it be statistically significant? Think about correlations. Again, look at those reference materials and in their relationship to research studies. Okay, let me get out of that. So that is the outline form. That is due October 20th, and then the details form. This is also due October 20th. This is what you are going to be providing to each participant. So you're going to collect their research consent forms, but then you're going to give them this. And we did not do this when I was a student, but it was added, and I love it because a lot of the people that were participating in our study said, well, aren't you going to give me anything so I know what I'm supposed to be doing? Well, we gave them an HEP, but they didn't have any kind of like a contract, so to speak, that outlines that, they can withdraw their participation at any time, and, what exactly are their responsibilities. So, again, just putting in your project name or title, research purpose, responsibilities, all of your names right in here. And I already filled in my supervising instructor here for you. So when you ask somebody, hey, will you participate in my study? After they sign the consent forms, you will give them one of these. So let me go to the consent forms real quick, because if you want to start recruiting participants, I kind of want you to be familiar with this. If you do this before coming to class. So if they're going to be in any kind of a photo or a video, you have to have them fill out one of these, and there's different forms. Here's like a PDF that is fillable, which you might be able to do like via email to get their consent forms, or one that you can print, have them sign it, and you make a copy of it or scan it with your phone to make it into a e-file and submit it that way. So PTA program consent, there are 3 different versions of this one. So each participant, absolutely, no matter what, has to fill out one of those. And then every participant has to fill out one of these. So just this top one, these top 2, I should say, are optional. It depends on if they're gonna be in a picture or a video. So if not, then you can skip these 2, but this is one group and this is another group. So this out, and then you also need to give them the outline or the details form. I apologize. So I put these right next to each other. The consent forms are due October 25th. And there's another document that's due the 25th, but I think that's enough for now. You guys are probably like, oh my gosh, but it'll go so fast, and hopefully you have fun with it, be creative, think about a problem that you wish that would get better if you were a patient in physical therapy. Again, just reach out if you have any questions. I am still gonna make like a Google Doc and put that on the course shell, probably right around this area or right underneath the syllabus. So that way, as you guys are figuring out your groups, or maybe you already know your groups, you can start putting them in there. All right, a lot more to come, but like I said, one step at a time. It hasn't even started yet, but I know I wanted to start getting participants' consent forms and everything done before the class actually started. All right, happy 5th week of clinical rotations, and I look forward to seeing you all. All right, bye-bye.